In this coding module, we are going to address some of the issues that we had with how our data is loading. If you recall, our plugin allow cores access control allow origin. This will allow us to bypass the browser security settings so that we can interact with the CoinMarketCap API. Just remember to toggle this on, make sure it's part of your Google extension, but if you toggle it on for development, make sure that you toggle it off. You can see here when we bring up the extension, we can toggle it on, but make sure you toggle it off after you're done development. And now you can see we get the full list of data from CoinMarketCap via their API. There's a couple defects we'd like to fix here. But first of all, let's just make this button a little bit bigger so it's a little bit more prominent. We can add some inline styling here. We'll give it a height and width increase. So you can see our DOM on the right there has updated. So here's the first defect here is we're having an issue with the filtering. We need to take care of some casing issues as well as a partial search. So we need to fix one bug is the search text to lowercase. There is an issue with the data payload coming back, and we would need to unhook the static data that we're using. We had that static data that was crypto coins where we hard coded all of this mock data. We need to unhook this and ideally we would like to use the cached result that comes back on our initial load. So we can remove this. We'll get an error. So right here you can see we have set coin data in memory. This is where we would like to reset our data to, or at least the default. First call the API, we'd like to default it to that list. If, for instance, we press enter key or we have no search criteria, we would like to default it to that data set. So even though we make the change here to coin data, you'll see that there's an error here because we're actually not interacting with the list itself. We are incorrectly interacting with the JSON payload that's coming back from CoinMarketCap. A quick way to look at the data is open up your console log. We dump the data here, and you can take a look at the network request. So when we refresh, we can see the refresh. We can see the payload coming back. We can see on our network tab, the latest endpoint from CoinMarketCap. You can see that payload that's coming through. And you can see there's a data key that holds the array. We can copy this raw. This website, jasonformatter.org, will allow you to paste and look at the JSON data in a little bit of a better format. You can see on the right that there are two keys in the object coming back, a status and a data. Inside the data is the list of actual cryptocurrencies that we need to render. So interacting with this API payload is going to be a little bit different than our mock data set. So to get this to work, we need to use that key. So we need dot notation for the dot data dot filter. And now we're having an issue with the lowercasing of the items. So I think in the API, it's lowercase name. So you can see now that is solving it. But also I think we are not handling the filtering correctly. So here's where we need to set the default data correctly. We need to set it one time on load. And ideally we'd like to set the array itself. So we'll actually do dot data here. Coin data to that full list. So we're going to manage a default data set that we can always reset back to. Then we also need to add another list in memory for filtering data. The reason why we separate these out is if we quickly need to reset back to our default, we don't need to worry about the filtered data and state. So we have coin data will be our default data. So we're going to create a new state item to manage here called filtered data, so that when we're filtering now, we're just managing the filtered list. So we default our initial default data array, but also we will also default our working array that we're going to be rendering to the filtered data. We are going to do the same set. We're just going to set both to the raw data. We need to change this JSX to look at the filtered data, but because we use the data key, we can directly just use filtered data. So you can see we have the filtered data is what's rendered now. We'll test the search out, and there's an issue here. The reason why there's an issue is because in our filter logic, we need to go back and actually filter across the filtered data. So we'll look back in here, see we're using the coin data there. That array is meant to be our default list. Back in our search method here, we need to actually, we have the wrong array that we're trying to set. We don't need to set coin data, that's our default array, to the filter data. We need to use our new mechanism for setting the filter data here. So this was wrong. We need to update set coin data to set filter data because that is the array that we are rendering. So now if we go back and we search, we can see that now it's actually returning our search result here. So we can see the result is working. There's a couple more defects we need to address. Mostly when we hit our enter key, we would like to reset back to the default full list of items. So we need to work on this. The only way we can do it right now is a full refresh, which is a bad user experience. We would like to be able to hit enter key after our search and reset the full list. So in order to address this, back in our handle search, we need to check if the search text is empty, and we need to reset back to the full list. Reset the full filtered list. Because remember, we are rendering the filtered data list. We need to reset that. The coin data list is really set one time on load, and it's the initial data. It's just basically in memory, we understand that that's the full data set. We don't have to fetch it again. So here is where we will set the filtered data back to our defaulted list. So if we do a search here, we'll search bonk. When we hit the enter key with no search results, we would like to be able to reset the list back to the default payload. So that's resetting now. This is in a good place. Next up, we would like to add some type of sorting so that when we search the cryptocurrency, we would like to use the dropdown. The dropdown will allow us to do, in order to accomplish some sorting, we're going to need to track the sorting type. Now this will be from the dropdown, market cap, 24-hour volume. These types of things, we'll be able to sort them based on ascending or descending values. So first of all, we're going to just set it to empty. We will default this to market cap for now, so that we have a sorting of a market cap by default, so that when we are searching our coin, it'll sort. We need to create a new handler now. We need to pass this through to our search panel component in much the same way, so we can get the value back from the child component. So when we trigger that change in the dropdown, we'll be able to set it in our state in the crypto dashboard. So we're going to wire this up, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to pass the handle sort event handler through to the crypto card component via props. So we're just going to wire this up so that we can see that it's working in our console log. And this will be a new property. And ideally after this, we'll set this in the current state of the dashboard so that the dashboard is the source of truth in managing all of these things required to filter. So this is going to come from the search panel component. We are going to pass this event handler to the search panel component to get the selected value of the search type. So here in our search panel, we're going to add another prop here. We're going to add another callback. We're going to add a sort type callback parameter, and this is going to be wired up to that handle sort type we just created. So once we wire this up, it'll be available via props in our search panel. And then here, we can actually wire up the handle search change that we already implemented to call back. We already have this working, so the handler is already there. Now we just need to implement this. We just need to pass back a value. We're just going to rename this to handle sort type change. And here we'll also rename this slightly to handle sort type change. We can just test this out by changing the alert. We can verify this old handler is still working. So we can comment this out, and now this is where we can use our callback from the crypto dashboard, passing the sort type callback through. This will be part of the props object, props.sortType callback, and now we need to work with the synthetic event that is always there in our event handler. So we need to provide that synthetic event. Now we have the event in our handler, event.target.value, so we can get the value of the select box and pass it back up to the parent component, crypto dashboard. So now in our dashboard, in our console log, we can see now, if we go to the console log, in our info tab, we can see our sorting type is set. Now if we're changing back and forth, we are in sync now from the child component passing data back up via events, callback, and calling back with that value. Our crypto dashboard is aware and state of not only the search text, but also the sorting type. Quick test here, we're going to do a little bit of changes. We can see the sort type is being tracked as well as the search text. However, we need to set the sorting mechanism up a little bit better.